Before putting their son Don to bed, a couple decides to read him a bedtime story, and they choose a book called The Bubble Island. There, a little knight used to have fun with the magical bubbles with his parents, until a gigantic storm cloud suddenly appeared. The superhero parents knew they had to deal with this danger, and they asked the waves and bubbles to look after their son and flew towards the clouds. At the end of the story, the parents give the boy a goodnight kiss, and he asks if the superhero couple from the story would ever return to see their son again. On hearing this, the boy's mother tells him that the little knight would be just fine living alone, and that he could always rely on his own abilities. Don later gazes at the portrait of his parents, and longs for them. What he didn't know is that this was a delicate goodbye, and they were to depart on a crucial mission, far from that place. From that day on, Don began telling the story of the superhero couple to all his friends, who started to get increasingly fed up with hearing the same thing over and over. One day, while playing baseball with his school friends, the boy runs to retrieve the ball that Ada had hit, which flew over the wall. He is excited to be playing since he doesn't get to play very often. Don's best efforts are to be helpful, and he runs as fast as he can to retrieve the ball, not realizing he is being pursued by a strange creature. The boy has a lot of obstacles in his way, but he finds the ball at the top of an antenna, and he sees that the ball falls to the ground immediately after being pushed by a shiny object. The ball soon hits a bicycle, which rolls towards a box pile where Don has an accident in front of his classmates. He has recovered the ball, but the game is already over, and Don is the subject of several jokes from the troublemaker, who says that he should go home. Wanting to avoid being left alone again, the little boy asks to join his classmates' next game, but they tell him they can't do that because whenever Don is on their team, they end up losing. Upon hearing this, the boy is devastated and sits down on the sidewalk where Nerman approaches to return the book of his favorite story, which he had been holding on to while Don was playing the game. Nerman knows that his friend doesn't look well, so he suggests that he enter the talent show, and that he should use the story from his favorite book to enter. But Don doesn't want to do it because all the people who have heard his story about Bubble Island up to now have thought it was awful. Notwithstanding, Nerman tells him that he should give it a shot. But in the middle of the conversation, they are surprised by Mai, who says that class is about to begin. Aja is back at his older brother's workshop, where he assists a customer with the repair of his radio, as the young man is still a little weak from his broken leg. During the repair, the two explore an invention the boy developed from scraps of materials and streetlights that he found to make a Christmas music box. Noticing the boy's great talent for inventing things, the rocker suggests that he participate in the talent show, which will take place at the region's cultural festival. When asked, Ada is hesitant to join in, but the client tells her that the prize is a lot of money and it may help his older brother's recovery. Ada realizes that the man is correct, and she starts to think about it, as this prize would mean so much to his brother. Later, Don and his friends are relaxing at his grandmother's house, and they ask why the boy isn't in the mood to tell his stories as usual. However, the boy doesn't answer the question and continues flipping through his book when he finds a space between the cover and the pages that he had never noticed before. Don discovers that there are a few pages of sheet music in this secret room, and asks his grandmother what it is, and she says that the handwriting on the paper is from the boy's mother. When he hears this, he is excited, and he shows his friends the music and tells them that he can tell his story at the talent show with his mother's music. To make his performance even more memorable, Don asks his friends to help him. Mai will be in charge of the costume, the melody, while Nerman will be in charge of the stage decorations. But the two remind the boy that he should register as soon as possible, and they go to the booth of the event organizer, where Ada approaches him to register. The problem is, the staff member tells the boy that the talent show is already sold out, and he is heartbroken and walks away. Minutes later, Don and his friends arrive at the venue and are devastated when they hear they won't be able to sign up for the competition. But just then, one of the organizers approaches the booth and says that one of the groups has just canceled its registration. Hearing this, the three offer to replace the youngsters who had left the show, and without a second thought, the staff members agree to the idea. The students are excited and go home. However, they meet Ada on the way and ask her how they got into the talent show. Don wants to get even with him for all the way he's treated him, and says that he was accepted because of his storytelling skills, and that he will read the story in the book his parents gave him. To knock the boy down, Ada pulls all sorts of stunts, and decides to steal the boy's book. Don is embarrassed and continues to lie on the ground, and the troublemaker decides to leave with his rival's book, leaving Don completely hopeless of winning the competition. But his friends attempt to lift his spirits, telling him that they can think of a new plan and still do it. As they talk, they see a toy moving around by itself across the room, and then a magic starts to play with all the objects around them. Confused, the young people try to figure out who is doing this, and seconds later, they are surprised by Mary, the spirit of a little girl who interacts with them as if they were her friends. Wanting to understand why the girl had appeared to them, Dawn asks why she's there, and Mary explains that while she was resting with her family, they were all attacked by a mysterious man who used a radio to capture her parents. But before they vanished, her parents gave her a magical necklace, which she was to use to save them. So, the girl asks the trio for help in rescuing her parents, but Dawn says they won't do it because they need to get their book back. On hearing this, Mary has an idea and offers to take the book back from Ada if Dawn will help her save her family. Realizing that this is a great idea, the young people agree to the plan and celebrate, knowing that from now on, they have a chance to solve their problems. The following day, the group meets outside of Ada's house and tracks the troublemaking student to retrieve Dawn's book. The teens observe that the student frequently helps others around him and even does some community service to make money to support his brother. However, the group remains determined to get the book, and after taking it from Ada's backpack, Mary hands it to Dawn. The problem is, as they are about to go, Dawn cannot climb back over the wall and falls to the ground, where he is discovered by the boy. Quickly, the teens run to avoid being caught by Ada. But on the run, Dawn decides to go to the school playground where some of his classmates are talking. The boy then invites the students to watch him at the talent show since he's going to perform his favorite story. But everyone starts laughing, saying that Dawn isn't good enough to put on a good performance. Taking his opportunity, Ada restates his claim that his competitor will never win a competition such as this one because no one cares about his silly book. All this humiliation leaves Dawn devastated, and he thinks of another way to grab the audience's attention, which leads him to the idea of asking Mary for help. Furious, the little girl reminds him that he had made a deal and now it's time for him to help rescue her parents. Meanwhile, Dawn begs Mary to help him just one more time since that performance is very important. And although she's reluctant, the little ghost girl agrees. So the group helps the girl put on a new costume so she can blend in with the humans who will be at the talent show. The village festival begins as the days pass and the young people begin to rehearse for their performance, as well as taking part in numerous activities to earn prizes. At the same time, Mary helps her friends, constantly giving them decisive advantages in various situations throughout the day with the music and costumes for the performance ready. The group takes a short break and Mary talks to Dawn about his family. The boy then tells the audience that his parents had gone on a business trip and in a heavy rainstorm had a terrible car accident and had died. When Mary hears this, she tells him that she got the necklace from her mother, who told her that it would keep her safe from any danger. However, if the necklace was not beautiful, she would never see them again. Dawn will do anything he can to save Mary's family, promising to do so until she is safe by their side. The girl is touched by her friend's kindness and uses her power to make a magical bubble and send it to Dawn's heart. He is delighted by the magic trick the spirit is able to perform. The group goes to the talent show at dusk and starts performing. And despite being very nervous, Dawn gets ready to sing. After a few seconds, Mary comes out with a cloud of bubbles and joins her friend's act, making the musical even more lively. Thanks to this, the group wins the talent show and they celebrate as they receive the cash prize for their incredible performance. Later, the group is celebrating, drinking some sodas, and Mary asks them when they will go look for her parents. But Dawn says that the talent show organizers are asking them to do it again the next night. So, until they have completed that last show, they will only be able to assist her. This attitude angers Mary, and when she discovers that Dawn is simply a liar and an opportunist, she leaves and says she'll find her family on her own. They don't know that Ada is listening to the whole conversation, and he runs to tell his brother what he is saying with the village chief at that moment. However, upon hearing about the supposed spirit of a girl, the young man can't believe it and asks him not to talk about things he doesn't know. At that moment, the village chief assures him that everything is fine and that the region will always be protected as long as he's alive. Disappointed, Ada leaves the room and the man explains to the boy's older brother that he has a new opportunity for them. Without a second thought, the mechanic accepts the offer and the chief leaves, still thinking about what Ada had said. It is then revealed that the village chief is none other than the hooded man who captured Mary's parents, and that he is plotting revenge after the grave of his late wife was buried by a construction company. The next morning, Dawn and his friends get ready to head out to their next performance. But when they remember that Mary won't be with them, they grow thoughtful. Dawn has an idea at that moment and goes to the hideout where he and his friends used to play together, where they meet the girl's spirit. The trouble is, when they get there, they meet none other than the village chief himself, who is accompanied by Ada and her brother, and who is using the light radio to control the spirits of Mary's parents. When the girl sees her family, she runs towards them and hugs them. However, she is blocked by Dawn, who shouts out that those are not her parents. But Mary Mary is not convinced, and she goes up to the couple and gets the chief's radio to take her prisoner. Maya Nerman sees the man in desperation to prevent him from doing so, and Don is ready to do the same. But when he sees Ada stealing his book once again, he gets distracted and lunges to attack him. Thanks to this, the village chief manages to capture Mary before the young men can stop him. And because of the high level of energy he used, his radio ends up being destroyed, generating a powerful plasma pulse. As a result, all the pages of Don's book are scattered, and furious that his device has broken, the man tells Ada and his brother to go with him to his car. However, the young man refuses to do so since he hadn't agreed to torment innocent spirits. And enraged, the village chief steps on his leg, causing the mechanic to start screaming. Desperate, Ada runs to help his brother, but the young man yells at him to run away. Then the village chief is taken away with the mechanic as a prisoner. As he's looking for the pages of his book, Don tells them to hurry because they don't want to miss the show. This reaction infuriates Maya and Nerman, and they start yelling at the boy, saying that everything that just happened was his fault since it was his selfishness that put them in that situation. In the midst of the argument, Don accuses Ada of being the one truly responsible for what happened, since the boy must have asked his brother for help in capturing Mary. But Ada says that he didn't know, and she runs away crying because they've been fooled. Realizing that Don has become an arrogant boy, Nerman tries to calm him down, but the boy pushes him away and they give up on their friendship, saying that the boy never cared about anyone but himself. The two then go off looking for Mary, and Don visits his grandmother's house, where she calms him down after all the fights. Ada visits the boy a few minutes later, apologizing for what he did in the past, and telling him that he was jealous of his classmate because Don had always had a good life. Besides, Ada tells him that he has only his brother with him and gives him a drawing she created on one of the pages of the boy's book. Realizing that the young man might actually be a good person, Don decides to make peace with Ada and invites him to join his group, since that way they'll have a better chance of helping their friends. So, the two went to meet Maya and Nerman, but they still feel betrayed, so they don't want to help them. Don then apologizes for all that he has done lately and states that he has come to understand how important their friendships are, as he would be nothing without them. On hearing this, the young people forgive their friend and they come up with a plan to defeat the village chief, who is hiding at a point on Ada's map. Soon the group rides off on Nerman's bike, which has been modified. When they reach the scene, they go to the man who is holding the young mechanic hostage. To distract him long enough, the boys put on a sort of horror show, which causes the man to flee in terror into the forest, taking advantage of the chief's panic. Ada steals his radio and Mai knocks him down with a trap, but the man gets it back and threatens to make Mary disappear if they continue like this. Don immediately makes a diversion, distracting the enemy, and seizes the radio from him. Furious, the chief chases after the boy, who runs into a construction site, while Ada goes to her brother, saying they need his help. Don manages to switch on the radio and rescue Mary, who is delighted to be saved by her friends, while evading the big man. But when the moment of joy comes, the boy lets go of the device. This enables the chief to recover the radio and to get ready to attack them, but he is surprised by 3 of Nerman's goats, who knock him to the ground. Shortly afterward, the young people show up to help their friends escape, and the man tries to chase after them, but is unable to catch up to his targets. The chief is determined to do what he wants, so he activates the device's ultimate mode with the ruby in his magic ring, and Mary's parents come back, but this time they are very angry. In a panic, the young people try to get away from the spirits, but they end up in an accident, and Ada yells for them to keep running since they're close to defeating him. Don says at this point, he has a plan, and he asks the group to disperse. So, Mai and Ada run beside Mary, and when they are cornered by the chief, the ghostly girl uses the pages of Don's book to trap his body. But this only makes the man even more angry. Once he's free, he announces that he will obliterate as many graves as he can while he is out to avenge his wife's grave. Meanwhile, Don and Nerman are running through the streets, being pursued by Mary's parents, who are desperate to catch them. The village chief at that time makes a strong beam of light to attack Mary, but Mary defends herself with her brilliant magic, thus causing a clash of powers between them. This fight generates a strong magical energy that knocks everyone around them to the ground. And wanting to help his friend, Don opens his parents' book once again. When he does, the magic bubble that Mary had placed over his heart comes into existence, and he combines the magic with his book and forms a green protective bubble. Don doesn't hesitate and calls for Nerman to assist him in jumping. The boy strikes the ghostly parents with his book, creating a large magical dome with the help of his friend, which bursts the chief's cursed ruby. The pages of the book are burned to ashes by the magic, and Mary's parents are released, and the family is reunited after all these years. Although his book has been destroyed, Don isn't sad because he has realized that the most important thing in his life is the well-being of those around him. The village chief is furious at what they have done and walks towards the young people, so Mary's family hides to be safe. Don asks the villain why he did that, and accuses him of wanting to sell the land of the cemetery because if he didn't, there would be no other reason to vandalize those graves. After seeing what they did to his wife's grave, the chief says that he doesn't care about people anymore and that he thinks everyone should suffer the way he has. As a result, the man doesn't care what happens to the cemetery grounds and will sell them for the highest possible price to make a huge profit off those who never cared about him. What the villain didn't realize was that this was all part of a plan by the group of children who lured him to the village festival stage where everyone could hear him confess his criminal scheme. In no time at all, the police come to arrest the ringleader and the villagers cheer the young people for their brave plan. Later, the group meets at Mary's family grave and reverses all the damage he wrought with his radio. This makes a magical portal appear in front of all of them. And after saying goodbye to their friends, the family of spirits departs to live in peace in the spiritual realm. A year later, the young friends continue with their performances. In addition, Don has learned to value all the stories he creates with his friends, saying that he won't always be the protagonist of the plays since each of them plays a significant role in the group. His grandmother is pleased with his grandson's progress and wants to share a picture of her childhood best friend with him. When Don sees the picture, he knows it's Mary, and he is glad that his grandmother had the opportunity to meet her when she was a child. Lastly, Don hacks into the former chief's radio and calls his parents, giving him one final chance to communicate with them after all these years. Though they are no longer together, the couple swears they will always be by his side, and they tell him they're very proud of everything their son has been able to accomplish. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, leave a comment about your favorite movie and we will make it next. Thanks for watching.